I think the question does come to now, like, where do we go from here? The hope was always that Oregon State would find their way into a Power 4 conference, and it'd be weird, but you'd still play the game, and you're a borderline Big 12 team or a borderline ACC team or whatever it would have been.
Yeah.
And you can keep it alive. The main argument, which I did chuckle because all the Beaver fans, not all of them, I shouldn't say all of them, some of them texting in now saying, we should never play this game again. We're texting in Thursday saying you're going to win the game. So I do chuckle a little bit at that. But I think the fear from those who have been adamant about not wanting to play this game is that you're only going to see what you saw on Saturday get worse.
Yes.
Oregon's not going anywhere. Whether they win it all this year or not, they're only going to continue to compile talent. They're only going to continue to load up on their roster. And Oregon State has now been faced with the reality of what their future conference affiliation will be, which is a hopefully powerful group of 5 conference that has a great shot at making the playoff, but that's the pool that you're now going to be playing in. And I think a lot of this determination and decision doesn't even need to come from my side. I think it all comes to your side of, do you want to continue to play this game? Is it something that you want to hold on to and continue to see?
Well, I said this last week, and I know they lost by 35. Not if it's going to be here. You need to be doing what Clemson and South Carolina do. You need to.
So you're okay playing it at the end of the, even if it's still a blowout, you're okay playing it in November?
I'm telling you 100%. Well, if it continues to be a blowout, sure. I'll listen to Oregon State fan and you do some big like alumni and fan or whatever poll, then okay, I'll listen to it. But I really do think, I know it sounds dumb, it wasn't weather that decided that game. But it just is such an odd feling to be 70 degrees.
Yeah, it didn't feel normal.
And have a September matchup.
People are, by the way, I did want to read a couple of these quickly because you had asked. Dakota
Yes.
had chimed in and said, where did this go? Comparing, I'm assuming he's a Beaver fan.
Okay.
He said, comparing it to the Washington game from last year, I could have had a library conversation the entire game, start to finish. It was difficult as a Beaver fan, not very electric.
Comparing it to the Washington.
When you hosted Washington last year.
It was pissing rain.
I know, just the atmosphere, though, of almost knocking off a top 10 team and just how electric it was. The weather, he's not talking about the weather, just the general vibe in the stadium, despite the rain and fans peeing on the concourse. Another one that came in basically said, I think it was from a Duck fan that basically said the same thing, was I was there when they missed the field goal on the opening drive and then Oregon scored. It was like the air was sucked out of the stadium.
Yeah.
And even at times they tried to make their comebacks. It still was not a raucous crowd, to say the least.
Well, I think you said the time possession was a good point, but I still think you could just look on the field and see the physical difference. I think that's always tough, right? Like when Oregon played Georgia, everybody that went to that game, including yourself, noted like you just went, oh, this might not be good. You can just sometimes see that with teams. And
I was talking to people down there. They said you would not believe the size difference on the offensive and defensive lines.
Right, and I think I could see that through my television, and that was the difference. If this game goes away, it goes away. I given what the nature of college football is, it's something we'll yearn for probably at some point if it does go away. I'm so used to it being at the back end of the season and a build up to it. But the talent gap thing is an absolute valid point. I don't know where the conference stuff's going to go. I know we got the Feldman report. The Clemson, Florida State stuff, they're trying to get that settled now. Like I think they filed something to basically say, make a judgment on this. We're tired of waiting.
We're getting the hell out.
And so I don't know what the ACC is going to be. But my feeling is you're going to end up with a Tulane-Memphis type of situation, a UNLV, whoever, more than some of these other teams from the ACC. And if you get Cal Stanford, okay, you're a decent conference. You're not a Big 12, Big 10, or SEC, but your conference is a little better. Great. But that gap is going to continue to widen because if your conference doesn't take a step up, you're not going to get as many Power 4, 3 conference players transferring in. You're going to get the 3-star guy who couldn't cut it at Arizona. And that might be good enough for you in your conference, but compared to an Oregon who has 4 or 5 stars at almost every single spot, in fact, I don't know who their non-4-5 guy is at a single spot. It's going to be close to that almost every single time.
Yeah. Swag, do you want the game to keep being played?
Yeah, I think you need to preserve it, and I think if it goes away, it will be much more difficult to bring back at a future date. Now, do they need to find a better spot on the schedule for it? Yeah, maybe you play it Halloween week. where the weather, because they play the Texas-Oklahoma game is what, the first or second Saturday in October, and it's part of the Texas State Fair and some other stuff. So if you need to reimagine how to put the pomp and circumstance and the juice back into it, okay, go get some heads and the marketing heads between Oregon and Oregon State together and let's figure it out. Yes, would it be better? Maybe you do, and you play it on a Friday night, the week of Halloween or something like that, and make it special and have it at night, dark, cold, whatever. But I think it does need to be preserved. I think we're too much in the moment right now and not thinking about, okay, Oregon State, can they put a conference back together, and can they slowly, everybody's going to come up and the talent gap will hopefully shrink. If in 5 years or 10 years or whatever in the new conference and it still goes, or if the Big Ten and SEC go totally away and do their own thing, then maybe it'll never come back. But for now, I think you need to have a mindset of trying to preserve this looking down the road.
Yeah, I think that's a totally valid argument. Somebody's texting in saying, guys, it was a one-possession game at the half. It was 22-14 at the half. It was a one-possession game. Now, final score was lopsided, and Oregon outscored them 27-0 in the second half.
But nothing about their defense suggested. See, I
never felt threatened.
Gabriel had all day, and it was something that I noticed early in the season was they couldn't generate a pass rush with just the front four.
Yeah, and so you can tell. I said the same thing to my neighbor jokingly. Hey, we're only down one score. Oregon was getting the ball back, and they were going to score again.
Yeah,
there was nothing about that matchup that you saw in the first half, despite Oregon State having good time of possession, keeping drives going. There was nothing about what I had seen, despite what that score was, to say, oh, I feel like we can do this, because our defense, Oregon State's defense, didn't show any signs of slowing or stopping that offense down.